Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar, which is all about setting healthy boundaries with your inner wise advocate. My name is Josie Thomson. I'm an award-winning coach. I'm an international speaker. I'm an author. I'm a single mum, and I'm a two-time cancer survivor. So just like you, I've had lots and lots of experiences, and for the past 20 years, I have been coaching hundreds and hundreds of people in life situations, both personally and professionally. And one of the big topics of conversation that always comes up is around setting boundaries, whether people have them or don't. And so there's a few things I want to cover off with you today, so that this is a really valuable use of your time. You can put some practical actions in place in your own life. But first of all, I want you to get that I know what I'm talking about, and that I'm talking to you and about people just like you. So I want to talk about what boundaries are, what healthy boundaries actually look like, why they're important, why you do want to have them, what is the consequence of not having them, and what can you do right now to start to set some healthy boundaries for your own life, which will amplify your light in the world and also the impact that you want to have in the world as well. So let's first of all talk about boundaries. Now, I was thinking about this webinar and I thought, well, what are some of the symptoms, what are some of the behaviors that I personally have either experienced or witnessed through my 20 years of coaching? And I thought I'd make a bit of a list so I can share this with you. And so what I found is that people that most need to have boundaries usually end up with symptoms that might look and sound a bit like this. So they're either people pleasers, they can be overgivers. They're not just caring and giving, but they give to extremes. Now, this has a great consequence for you as a giver. But as a receiver, some people, some takers, if you like, they actually don't have limits. But givers need to learn to have limits. The other thing about overgiving sometimes can actually guilt the receiver. Believe it or not, there are people that find it, they much more enjoy to receive, they much more enjoy to take. But sometimes when you overgive, they get to a threshold where, okay, now this person's being too generous or over-caring. And so you can actually have a double bang, shooting yourself in the foot and not being as kind to the other like you intend to be. So then there's overworking. There's overcommitting, saying yes before you even think about consequence, or even before the request has finished coming out of the person's mouth, you're already saying yes. So not being able to say no without feeling a sense of guilt around it. Doing too much. Sometimes our busyness can be a form of distraction, even maybe avoidance. Not doing enough can be another area of needing boundaries, constantly comparing yourself to others. And maybe where you've got to a point where your body's gone, hang on, what about me? And now you're actually experiencing physical symptoms of your body crying out and saying, enough, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I need rest. So if any of that sounds like you, I hear you, I'm here for you. And today I want to give you some practical things that you can do that can start to counter some of these behaviors and get you into a more balanced and wholesome state so that you can continue to actually offer up your best self to yourself and also those people that you really care about. So the title of this webinar was also about, setting the healthy boundaries with something called your wise advocate. So what do I mean by that? Let me give you the definition of that. So in January 2019, two other people and I, Dr. Jeffrey Schwartz and Art Kleiner, published our first co-authored book called The Wise Advocate. And the subtitle is The Inner Voice of Strategic Leadership. Now, here's the thing. Leadership is not just who you are at work. Leadership is how you lead your life. But the whole thing about boundaries, and the reason I decided to link these two topics, is because when we don't have boundaries, we are being led by everyone else's desires and wants and requests and agendas and needs, and not our own. Where is the regard for our own needs and our own rights in our own lives? So the concept of the wise advocate is this. There's an aspect of mind that we all have access to that we call the wise advocate. And what it is, it's that inner voice that loves and cares for you, that knows what's best for you, that knows the right thing to do in the long run. Now, this inner loving guide is actually always there and available to us if we know it's there and if we care to connect with it. Sometimes you may find yourself saying, I need to stop and think about that. Well, when you stop and think about it, do you actually ever observe your mind and notice where your thoughts go? You probably still yourself and start to inquire into some quiet space within you that you're seeking an answer from. And that quiet space within is actually this thing that we're calling the inner loving guide, the wise advocate. So today I'm going to share with you some ways that you can connect into that aspect of your mind that you have available to you at all times, when you can steady and ground yourself and still yourself to be able to connect in and actually get the advice, the counsel, the wisdom, the guidance you need to navigate whatever it is that you're handling at this time. Now, here's the thing. When you don't have boundaries, these are some observations that I've made and I've personally experienced as well, and you probably have yourself. When you are lacking boundaries, or if you think, I'm not sure if I need them or not, if any of these symptoms sound familiar, you need boundaries. So listen up. So some of the feelings that you can start, and states of emotion that you can start to experience when you don't have healthy boundaries are feelings of emptiness, feeling sad or stuck, feeling depressed, feeling shut off, feeling exhausted, feeling like you've got nothing left, you're totally spent, feeling stressed, feeling overwhelmed, feeling lost or numb, feeling resentful, feeling tired, feeling anxious, feeling burnt out, not sleeping, not eating well, feeling inadequate, feeling like you're not enough, that no matter what you do is never enough. And then maybe you're asking yourself, when is it my turn? You know, I do so much for so many people and I care for so many causes and so many others. Who's going to look after me? Who's going to care for me? When is it my turn? Well, the answer to that is now, and the person that needs to attend to you is you. So here's something I've always said is that you and I are totally responsible for our own lives. So you are responsible for your happiness. You are also responsible for your unhappiness. And so if you don't like the way someone's treating you, if you don't like the way someone's behaving towards you, you have a responsibility to yourself to speak up, to look after yourself, to care for yourself, to attend to yourself. When we don't have healthy boundaries and we start having these emotions that are quite negative and contracting, and they actually start to zap our life energy out of us, we're not shining and sharing our best authentic self with the world. And that is the self, the true self, that you actually want to be able to enjoy and express and celebrate with the people around you. When we don't have healthy boundaries, it can also result in unhealthy behaviors and narratives. And what these end up being, they become habits. And these habits can be habits like addictions, and they can also be habits of, for example, attracting unhealthy relationships. So what happens is, until we actually attend to our own needs and start taking care of and respecting those needs, nobody else will. So having boundaries is actually a symptom of self-care, self-worth, and self-love. And I'm going to deep dive right into this even more in an upcoming workshop, which you will see more details about after this webinar. But I do want to give you some practical strategies today. And you will notice that there's a link to download your worksheets for today. And in the worksheets, I've got some handy tips. I've also got a space where you can jot down some notes so that you can, as you're listening to this webinar, you can actually go, oh, that's a nice point. That's a great point. I want to remember that. Note it down. When you note it down, you're more likely to remember it. And what I've also done is I've also given you on that worksheet 3 critical questions that when you start to analyze, which I filled out myself, by the way, that when you start to analyze what we're talking about today and look to apply it in your own life, it'll be really handy for you to be able to collate your thinking into one space and actually get all of the tips and strategies that I'm sharing with you today into a practical outline and action plan that you can execute after this webinar today. So I want to acknowledge you right now for being here. The reason you're here is because you do want to change. You do want to set some boundaries. Maybe you've tried and haven't been successful, but you're ready to learn maybe some new ideas of how you can do it better. And I'm glad you're here, so huge acknowledgement to you. The thing about change is this. Change doesn't happen overnight. It's one thing to acknowledge that you have a need for boundaries, and I acknowledge you for getting to this state of awareness. If you don't have self-awareness, you can't take responsibility for it. So the fact that you're here, the fact that you have awareness of a need to set healthy boundaries for yourself and your life, I congratulate you for achieving step 1. Step 2 is making the decision to take responsibility for what you actually want. So in order to take responsibility for what you want, it requires 2 things. 1, to make the decision that I'm taking charge. 2 is to know what you want, and that's the next step. So the thing I'm going to ask you right now is, are you open to the idea of having healthy boundaries? So I want you to say your answer out loud, and hopefully it'll be yes. The second question is, are you willing to set some healthy boundaries? And the third question is, are you ready to set some healthy boundaries to start to take charge of your life? Now, I hope that your answer to each of those questions is yes. If you had a no somewhere in there, well, maybe you're not quite there yet. However, the information that I share with you today will be handy for when you are ready to actually make some changes. Now, the thing about change is you're not the only one that's going to feel the impact of change. Those people that have grown accustomed to be able to rely on you and depend on you for all of these times that you've always said yes, they're also going to feel the consequence of your yes to you. Okay? So when we're talking about change and we're talking about taking charge of your life, yes, it's going to have an impact on others, but your responsibility is primarily to yourself. and the role you play in your self-care, because the people around you are not going to change. You have no command over their behaviors and their choices. However, you have command over how you think, how you feel, and how you choose to act. They're not the ones that are going to give you permission to have a boundary. You're the one that's going to have to decide that you would like a boundary. And then your job is to simply and assertively, with kindness, communicate that boundary. So let's talk about this. There are two types of boundaries I've found. First is internal boundaries, and then the second is external boundaries. So what do I mean by that? The first thing, the internal boundaries, are things that you have direct control over. So when I ask you a question like, how do you want to set up to have a great day? What needs to happen on a routine basis for you to feel good when you wake up of a morning, that you have the right mindset as you enter your day? What sort of structures or routines would serve you to feed yourself mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, to have you feel good about yourself and how you're living your life? So for me, I know that when I was in my 20s, I was working full-time in a bank. I was just recently married. In those days, people got married young. Okay, I was 22. And I, as part of a big Italian family, there's a lot of duty and obligation that's part of the fabric and tapestry of being part of an Italian or ethnic family. That's just part of the deal. You grow up with that. On top of that, I'm the eldest daughter and a little bit of a connector and matriarch between the families. What I found, and I was studying part-time. I was doing a Bachelor of Business at night school, and I was also teaching aerobics part-time. So I felt like I was kind of looking after myself, but I never stopped. I was just constantly in this action mode. Go, 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 do, please, 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 appease. And eventually at 22, I got sick. My body had given lots of warning signs to slow down. And then eventually it just went, enough. And I got diagnosed with cancer. Now, I'm not suggesting that this is what's going to happen to you, and I pray that it never does. But your body will be affected by your mental and emotional experience. Because the fact is this, having studied my master's in neuroscience, I actually know this is a fact. Your mental and emotional experience will become physical. So we have to be really, really careful about how we're driving this engine, how we feel, and what we choose to do. We have to take care of this one body that we're born into, that becomes our vehicle for this lifetime. There's a song that my favorite singer, Freddie Mercury from Queen, sang, and it's called I Was Born to Love You. And every time I hear it, I just get charged. My body just goes, whoa, and I just roar it out loud and sing it on the top of my lungs, and I love it. And one of the things that I did one year, because I did struggle with weight in my late teens, I was a bit of a chubba chops, and I would compare myself to others, and I ate a lot of pasta, and I didn't know when to stop. I loved my pasta, and I realized that the comparison that I was making with other people always had me fall short. And I didn't really have boundaries because I was a people pleaser. I wanted the feeling, a sense of belonging. I wanted to make sure that the people I loved, respected me or liked me. And I just was in constant motion all the time. And I didn't actually have some of those internal boundaries that made sure that I was looked after. It looked like I did because I was teaching aerobics, which is healthy. I was eating reasonably well, but I never stopped. And eventually my body went, enough, you need some boundaries here. I was also in a position where I was a people pleaser, and I would say yes way too often. And so getting unwell like that was my pivot point to finally go, enough. All of this saying yes to everyone else, I didn't realize that I was saying no to me. I thought I was saying yes to me because I liked how I felt when I was attending to other people and helping other people, but I wasn't really attending to my deeper needs, my needs for rest, my needs for reflection, my needs for connection, my needs to receive. I wasn't actually allowing myself that. In a way, I felt like I didn't deserve it. So our sense of worthiness is also wrapped up around our capacity to set boundaries. People only respect boundaries that we have. If you don't have boundaries, there's no respect, right? Givers give and they need boundaries. Takers have none. So you're the one that has to decide what is enough. And first of all, to do that, you have to consider on this side of the line, what do I need so that I'm fully charged, I'm fully energized, I'm fully resourced, so that I can give the best of me to others, not just the rest of me to others. And then at the end of the day, I'm left with an empty cup and I can't enjoy any of it. So now what I've done in terms of setting some healthy structures or boundaries is I start my day every day with some contemplation time. I meditate. And the thing about meditation or reflection, it's not about how long you do it for. It's about consistency of practice. It's like everything else. It's about consistency of practice. So when you're looking to change and create new habits, you need to be patient, you need to be kind, and you need to be gentle with yourself, because there will be times where you won't get it right and you will fall back on old patterns. That's what habits do. They just pull us back, particularly when we're stressed or pressured. But with 3 ingredients, you can create new healthy patterns and behaviors and habits. And they are, first of all, to know what you want. So give focus to what you want. Second, repetition. Third, positive feedback and reinforcement. So if I say I need to start my day with some quiet time for reflection, I do it for 5 minutes today, and then I do it again the next day, and I give myself a little tick or a smiley face or something, or I cuddle and go, yay me, I did it. Or I've got a to-do list and I've actually put that on my to-do list, me on my to-do list. Then I have that sense of reward, and my brain goes, that's a signal to do more of that, because I like feeling that sense of reward. So make sure that you're on your to-do and to-be list as well, because every time you get to tick off something you wanted to do for you, no matter how small, even if it's take a walk around the block, it's something. It's time out for you. You're out in nature. You're breathing deeply. Your brain gets a break, right? And that's you time. So it doesn't have to be some expensive resort and retreat somewhere. You know, you can keep it quite simple. So when we talk about our internal boundaries, it's anything that you need to enliven your own sense of self, your energy, because everything that we do is an exchange of energy. In fact, it's an exchange of our life, time and energy. So it better be worth it. When you think about it, if you're at your end of your days and you're sitting there going, I wish I'd spent more time at work. I wish I'd spent more time tidying up. I wish I'd spent more time giving to that cause. Well, I think the narrative might be, I wish I'd spent more time making me happy or doing the things that brought a smile to my face. And I'm saying, do it now while you've got the time. You don't need to get sick. You don't need to have a dramatic warning to be able to get this. The fact that you're here, you know you need them. So the first thing I invite you to do is take stock of what you want. Now, what I've done in your worksheets is 3 really important questions I would like and invite you to answer. The first one is, what am I allowing to continue within my behavior that is not in alignment with the person I choose to be? Now, this takes a little bit of reflection, so take your time after this webinar to fill that out. I actually filled this out and I said, saying yes to too many things, not making the time to clarify what I really want, maybe avoiding seeing what I want and noticing I'm not doing it, putting everyone else's needs before my own, confusing busyness with productivity and wearing that like a bit of a badge of honor, and not resting when I need to rest. Maybe you can relate to some of that. The second question in that worksheet, what habits and rituals do I need to stop doing that are allowing my self-sabotage to continue? So I really want you to think about how you're contributing to the no boundaries habit. And then the third question actually asks you to take charge. What self-respecting personal boundaries could you start to turn this all around? I hope you'll take the time to do that. I would like to give you 3 additional questions that are about boundaries in relationships, because what I've found is oftentimes there's a real need for boundaries in relationships. So grab your pen and write these questions down. So those 3 questions in your worksheet relate to boundaries for self-care and the internal boundaries. When it comes to relationships, I want you to write these 3 questions down. The first one is, what am I allowing that is okay with me, that is actually not okay with me? So when we talk about relationships, what am I allowing that is not okay with me? So take the time to write your answer. The second question I want you to write down is, what do I need to stop doing that is allowing this to continue? And I'll give you an example in a moment. And the third one is, what do I then need to reinforce as a new personal boundary? So what do I then need to reinforce as a new personal boundary? So for me, what am I allowing that's not okay with me? Being ignored or neglected. The second one is, what do I need to stop doing that's allowing this to continue? I need to stop being quiet about it and there's no consequence to being treated this way. And the third one is, what do I need to do to reinforce a new personal boundary? I need to seek fulfillment elsewhere. So it's pretty simple when you actually take the time to reflect and not just ask yourself the question, which is what we often do, but actually answer it. Now, this is where the wise advocate comes into play. What I'd like you to do with me right now is, no one else around hopefully, is I want you to gently close your eyes. I hope you're not driving, so keep them open if you're driving. So just gently shut down your eyes, and I want you to just take a deep breath in through your nostrils. Hold the breath, and then just a gentle exhalation out of your nostrils. Let's take another 2 breaths like that. And out. One more. And out. While your eyes are closed, I want you to ask yourself a question. And this is the question to ask. I want you to ask yourself, what healthy boundary do I most need just for me right now? What one area of my life do I want to and need to set a boundary around? And just be quiet and still. And gently open your eyes. Now, if you were able to completely surrender into that silence and that stillness, the answer would have been there just like that. That quiet, inner, still, loving space is your wise advocate. You can access that space whenever you like, but you do need to quieten down yourself and you need to get still. And the breath is a wonderful avenue to make direct contact with that aspect of your inner loving guide that always has your back, that always wants the best for you, and always has the right answer for you in the long run. Now, I talked about the other type of boundary, and that's external boundaries. External boundaries are boundaries that are required for you to operate in a functional, healthy way with your external environment. So this might be about relationships, this might be about work, this might be about other commitments that you get involved in. So external boundaries are really asking of you to assert where's your limit. So if it's with relationships, there are people that give life to you when you're around them. They energize you, they uplift you. You feel good by being around you, by them. But then there's other people that drain your energy, that every time you've spent time with them, or most time, you just feel drained and like exhausted. Now, you have to set a limit to that. If you choose to want to be in relationship with that person, that's fine. But maybe you need to limit the amount of exposure that you have to that person, because you're being drained of your vital energy and life force. So, you know, you've probably heard about this concept of energy vampires. People either uplift you and you feel really good for having been around them, or if you notice a contraction and they drain you, you really need to set a boundary. When it comes to work, you need to notice when your energy reserves are spent. You need to notice when your body starts to contract and constrict and go, enough, I need a boundary here. Or if someone's not treating you properly, speak up. Even if it is walk away, whatever you need to do to exercise some self-care, some self-worth, and some self-love. And we're going to deep dive into those three concepts in my next workshop called The Festival of Me. So check that out if you're wanting to really get a solid handle on this. So I've noticed that we're out of time now. I hope that today's been really helpful for you about how to go about setting healthy boundaries with your inner loving guide, your wise advocate. I'd like to end this webinar with a quote by a dear friend of mine who I actually shared the stage with in London a few years ago, Brene Brown. And she says, "Daring to set boundaries is about having the courage to love ourselves even when we risk disappointing others." So with that, I wish you well. If you would like further support from me on a weekly basis, check out my membership at Coffee, Tea and Josie over on Facebook. I would be delighted for you to join me there. I interact with my tribe every single week, and you'll get daily support from me as well. So there'll be a link in the notes below with a special code, which is, actually, I can give that to you right now. It is, where is it? What did you know it? I can't find it. I think it's 10. Oh, yes, here it is. It is 10OFF, 10 off. So it gives you 10% off when you become my tribe member. And I found one more thing I'd love to share with you. These are some, I call them the 10 commandments of stress reduction for cancer patients that I do a lot of work with. They might come in handy for you, so I'll leave you with these final words. The first one is, thou shalt not be perfect. Thou shalt not try to be all things to all people. Thou shalt leave things undone. Thou shalt not spread thyself too thinly. Thou shalt schedule time for self and support network. Thou shalt switch off and do nothing regularly. Thou shalt be boring, untidy, inelegant, and unattractive at times, but not when you go to work. Thou shalt never feel guilty. Thou shalt be thine own best friend, and thou shalt take good care of thy body. So go well, shine on, and take good care of you. Share this with those people that you love who also might need some help with boundaries, and I look forward to connecting with you again soon. Bye for now.